Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. I am so excited to welcome you to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show and let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Audible, CastBox, wherever you find your favorite shows. Talk about favorite shows. We have a favorite show for you today. Joe Gatto, one of the founding members of Impractical Jokers, is here to celebrate his debut children's book. It's called Where's Bearry? Later in the show, Gia Susi will be here to celebrate when the world feels a little scary. Hey, my friends, you know, the Summer Olympics are right around the corner, and if you're looking for the perfect family read to celebrate the Olympics, check out Laura Siobhan's Takedown. Lev is determined to compete at the state wrestling championships, but then he's paired with a new partner, a girl. Lev and Michaela push each other to excel, but when they meet on the mat, only one can win. Takedown is a multiple award-winning and state list-nominated middle-grade novel about families, friendship, and hard work. Get your copy today at bookshop.org or check out the free educator's guide at laurachauvin.com. My friends, what if you and your kids could learn all about emotion simply by reading a bedtime story together? Introducing Bella Santini and the Land of Everlasting Change, the award-winning fairy tale that has captured the hearts of parents and kids alike. Join Bella Santini on an unforgettable adventure through a strange and magical world. This book has been called a life-changing masterpiece. It will empower kids and allow them to understand themselves and the world in a brand new way. It's the winner of the prestigious Golden Wizard Book Award and the Mom's Choice Award. Get your copy of Bella Santini and the Land of Everlasting Change today. A magical journey to emotional growth awaits. Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. Hey, join us right now from the great state of New York. Our guest is here today to celebrate his brand new debut children's book. It's called Where's Bearry? Please welcome to the show, Joe Gatto.
I'm here, everybody. All right, calm down, everyone. Calm down.
You may recognize Joe's name from Impractical Jokers. And so good to have you on, Joe. Thank you.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me here. It's going to be, it's great. It's great.
I think it's going to be a great conversation. There's a lot I want to share with you about my family, and you are sharing with me something about your family. First, let's share with the audience what Where's Bearry is all about.
Where's Bearry is based on a story about my son. He's obsessed with his stuffed animals. He lost one night and couldn't find him and refused to go to bed without it, so we had to go retrace his steps. And at the same time, I was trying to help him deal with his anxiety and craziness of he was overwhelmed by not being able to find it, and kind of like a coping mechanism. So it was like a life lesson put together. And then I was like, oh, this is kind of fun the story was kind of fun, how we found them and everything. So I was like, you know what, this might be a nice thing to share with my fans. So I decided, I always wanted to do a kid's book. And I was like, you know what, this might be the right one. And I'm very happy with the way it came.
That's awesome. You were telling me, Joe, beforehand, you loved reading with your kids. And that's what we're all about here.
For sure. I mean, I didn't really get read too much as a child, but I did have my dad and mom tuck me in, right? But I didn't really have like a book. But my kids have bookshelves in their room, and it became part of the routine because that's how my wife grew up. So reading became part of the nighttime ritual, and you find all these fun stories, and they come to life, the illustrations, and you're walking through the pictures and everything with your kids, and it's some real bonding, which is real fun. And I was like, this is such a different way for me to be in the homes of fans and entertain and really just sparked a different type of creativity in me. I really enjoyed the process, and I was like, you know what? This is really good, and I'm very happy with the way it came out. Because in the beginning, you don't know, because I don't draw, right? So I had to get somebody. I had to partner up with a great guy. His name's Luke Flowers through Penguin Publishing, and he's just so fantastic, and he was actually a fan of Jokers. So when he illustrated, like he knew what my son looked like, because I have him on my Instagram and stuff. So he came up with some really good stuff. He put some Easter eggs from the show inside the book. So it was just a really fun collaboration, and I'm very happy with like the end product. So much beyond than I thought it would be.
Well, I love how you're celebrating the bond between you and your kids with reading, because that's why I started the podcast 7 years ago, is that I knew that I wanted to share that. My kids are adults right now. After we finish this, I'm going to be driving my daughter back to her home. She came down here to Boston to take care of some business, and we're going to spend the afternoon together. And I'm very close with my kids, and I know that that bond that we share today was built on a foundation that was created as we read books to them.
Absolutely.
And we encourage families not only to read books with their little ones cuddled up in bed or on a couch, but to continue to read with them, because that leads to throwing the ball around together and watching movies together, listening to music together. And with my daughter, it led to us watching Impractical Jokers together. And that was one of the things we did as we kind of our relationship grew. And so when I got the pitch to have you on the show, I said, absolutely.
It's come full circle. We've been building for this moment for a decade.
There you go. The whole show was all about just me and Jim celebrating our kids. And that's really, celebrating our kids, I think, is a pretty cool thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, they're great. Like to have like the story based on them. And I remember I had gotten the first print I had seen. I brought them home and I hid it in their bookshelf, and it was time to read. And I said, let Daddy pick the book tonight. And I showed it to them, and they absolutely flipped out. It was so fun. I actually put it up on my Instagram so everybody could see it, but it was so cute to see, that was him. And then when we turned to, there's a page where my daughter's in it. So he turned, and my daughter's like, that's me. And my daughter's in it because my son is such a sweetheart. When I told him about the book and we saw the first draft or whatever, and I was showing him pictures and what he would look like. And he said to me, he goes, what's Milana's his sister? He goes, oh, what does Milana look like? And we didn't have her in the story. And I was like, she's not. He goes, well, she's got to be in the book, Dad. And I was like, that's so sweet that it came from him, even though this whole thing was about him. So it was really sweet. We have a page that she's in there, and we put one of our favorite dogs in there because our whole house is filled with dogs. So like it's got a real family affair in the book. And just to see them experience it and kind of like recognize the rooms a little and see what they look like as cartoons, like that blows a kid's mind. He's 7 years old. To see himself as like drawn as like a cartoon is really cool.
That is really cool. You were mentioning that this was a different way for you to create, and folks who aren't familiar, with your TV career, just give them a little snippet about what Impractical Jokers is all about.
Yeah, sure. So I've been an entertainer for years. I've always been into comedy. I started with improv comedy in 1999, me and my friends, and then that's, scaled all the way through different formats. I did improv comedy. I did sketch comedy. I did film comedy, short comedy for the internet. And then we got into Impractical Jokers, which is a TV show based with me and my friends. That was kind of like a tongue-in-cheek prank show where we pranked each other in front of the general public and did the collateral embarrassment. And that I was on that show for 9.5 seasons, a decade of my life. It was great. Then I moved into stand-up comedy after that, and I've been enjoying that. I'm on the road again doing my second tour, which is great. I just start that in September. And during the time down, I was always writing. I've always been writing. I write screenplays or whatever. And then I was like, you know what, let me try my hand at a kid's book, because the story was so cute that where it came from, my son had lost his stuff. I was like, this is a cool story to share, because I know other parents go through it too, right? So it's like, oh, that'd be kind of fun. And I've always heard about how families enjoy me. And it was like a fun way to be back in with the family. Like even you said, I'm part of your family. It's another way to get in and be part of the family, which I think is really cool. So I was like, oh, let me try this. And then when I did it, I was like, oh, this is a fun, like unlocked a different part of my brain to be like, this is a fun way to do it. And I want to do it again. So whenever I do something and I want to do it again, I feel like that's really nice. Like I've tried a couple projects that I was like, oh, okay, one and done. I was like, oh, this is fun. But this is something that like awoke something in me about doing it. So, I feel like I'll have a little bit of a moment here in the children's book kind of arena.
Yeah. The people who listen to the show know that I've made a living doing educational magic shows for 35 years. And I have a hard time imagining, when you're on stage telling a joke, the response is immediate, or you don't get a response. And that's also immediate.
That's also immediate. Yeah.
But, when you're writing a kid's book, I was really shocked when I first started the podcast and had a publisher on and learned that it can take 2 or 3 or 4 years from the time the book, the manuscript is bought until it gets out there. So you're waiting for 3 or 4 years to get that response. What was that kind of something you had to deal with?
Totally different. Yeah. It was, I think, just over 2 years, or maybe. I think the process total from like start to finish with it. Because there are so many different steps. A lot of it's out of your control, right? You write the manuscript, you have the story, you have an idea what the book's going to be like, but then, you got to get everybody on board. You got to get it illustrated. You got to give notes on it, revisions, things like that, and all these illustrators, especially the talented ones that are busy working, have multiple projects they're working on. So, you're in the queue. But I feel like it is, what I like about it, which is different, like, the instant gratification that you get in like stand up or something like that. This is a rolling gratification, right? Because you write the story, it's great. It gets bought, great. It gets illustrated. You see the first cut, great. You see the backgrounds added. Oh my goodness, this is coming together, and it grows and grows, and then boom, it's done. And then, I can't even imagine what I'm going to be like on September 3rd when the book comes out and I'm doing my press release stuff, like where I'm in, like doing book readings and things like that's just such a different, cool thing. It just keeps giving in a different way, if that makes sense. I feel like a story keeps giving. It's a story within itself about how this project, it's so much more a labor of love because, you're incubating it. Longer, with stand up, it's kind of like that too. I had gotten that a little bit too, because you work for it, you write your sets, you see what jokes work, you see what doesn't work, you feel out what stories you want to tell. Cause I'm a storyteller. So like, I feel like what stories are better than others, how they all connect, what's the theme. Like, so it's kind of like that, but it's over a much shorter time period. You're done with that in about 3 months. Right. This is 2 years, you got 24 months of this stuff. So, yeah, I think between the two, it's very different. I imagine it like an old school photographer taking pictures with a film camera, right? And then being like, did I get it? And then when they print it out, they're like, oh, this is really interesting,
Yeah, that just brought back a whole bunch of memories. Being up in a mountain, taking a picture, you get hike all day to get up to the top of the mountain. You take the picture, and it's like, gee, I hope that came out.
I'll see you in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I'll see you in 3 weeks when CBS lets me know. After
right, yeah. And then you get that roll of 32 and you have 30 pictures and you got to take 2 more, but you don't want to just waste the pictures.
No, of course. Of course, the cap's on for 2 of them. Your fingers over the lens for 1, it's a numbers game.
It is. Was it, difficult for you to write for the family audience? Impractical Jokers, that's a family show, but more on the kind of PG-13 kind of range. Was it difficult, putting your mindset in that picture book kind of mentality?
No, the picture book, I've always had an affinity for picture book. I always loved this range of book, but I did have, like, when you have the story, I was like, okay, this is the story. How do you make it presented in such a way, right? Because when I first wrote it, it was just like a story that I would tell an adult. Like I'd be like, oh, we were running around, blah, blah, blah. and it was a little like comedic, but then I was like, okay, but I do, like I said, I do see a lot of books and read the books with the kids. I also worked in children's back in the day. So before I started Jokers, I worked for a baby store called Giggle, and it's this baby company that sold high-end furniture, baby gear, but they had a whole gift section, and a big part of the gift section was books, and I had fallen into knowing what the books were. And part of my job was, as the personal shopper there and the training program manager, was to know what every book was about, know the author a little bit, be able to speak to them and sell them. So I really got a different look at them, and I enjoyed them. And I actually wrote a kid's book back then, but I wasn't ready to have a kid's book. I was, I didn't even have kids. I'm just working in this baby store. But I really clicked with books, kids' books in a way, because the art brings them to life in a different way. Like, it's a visual tale, which I like. When you read to your kids, you see how they respond to the character, like in a different way than they just imagine them. And I believe that feeds their imagination and helps them form what it would look like with somebody when they're thinking of something, like what it looked like. I do that with my kids a lot now. I make them describe if they're telling a story, like we tell stories to each other. And my son will be like, we're running. He's like, and I meet Bob, and he'll just say, Bob, what's Bob look like? And I make them describe them, and I feel like they get better at that. And I think it all feeds from different media, from people, coming in, and it comes a different way in books than it does in TV or, video, because they're not real, right? Animation, really, in a different way. These are fake. They know they're not real things. So they know they've been imagined. So not that I don't know if my son's even thinking that deep, but I see, as he's explaining to me as he gets older, he's more descriptive of certain things. Like, I'll notice somebody's wearing glasses now, or I'll notice, he told me the other day out of nowhere, we were talking about somebody. Oh, he was talking about, he likes like battles and stuff between like knights and stuff. So he was talking about a knight, and he told me he was left-handed. I was like, it's such an odd descriptive thing. He's like, yeah, and they're fighting. He's like, and Daddy's holding his sword in this hand because he's left-handed. I just started laughing. I was like, it's such an odd, specific, out of nowhere, so it was really funny.
That's cool. Now, did you then go and play the scene of the Black Knight from Monty Python?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. But we'll wait on that one, maybe till 12 years old, 13. But then, that's all coming.
Well, and that is a fun movie to read, to watch with your 12 and 11-year-olds. Of
course.
It's
yeah.
I think we watched that scene over and over and over again. It was so much fun.
Well, I went for a long time. I still am obsessed with like fantastical stuff. I love like wizardry and all that stuff. And one of my favorite for me, when I was 12 years old, I saw the movie Willow. So I was like, I can't wait till my kids are old enough to see that. Still think that my son's he might be a little nervous or scared about certain parts. So I'm waiting a minute, but I'm excited for them to watch Willow with me. I hope it holds up as much as I remember, but I think as a kid, it's a different experience.
I'm loving this conversation because I'm sitting with a fellow dad. You're a TV star and a stand-up comic, and you have all the success in the world where so many people aspire to be. But as I'm talking to you, it's really clear that being a dad, if it's not number one, it's 1A in your priority list. Yeah.
I mean, I've refocused and reevaluated on a lot of things over the past couple of years, and it's important that you're going to leave these kids behind. You want to be prepared. And I feel like it's important. My dad was a great dad. I lost my dad when I was 19. But the impact he had on my life was insane. Like, he had such I feel like a lot of the building blocks of me came from my dad. And I'm like, I want to be that there for my kids. Like, you feel that. But then there's always something, it's kind of selfish too. Like, it feels good to be a good dad, right? Like, it feels good. Like, when it's a point of pride. And if you're not a good dad, it feels like such like, I carried like a guilt for a minute, or like a hurt almost, like, oh, I should be doing this better in a different way. Then, like, if you're not a good comic, you're like, all right, I'll try to, if you're not doing so great at your job, like, all right, maybe I'll get a different job. Like, you can't get a different dad job. Like, these are your kids. You can't swap them in and get different kids. These are them. This is the future you're molding. So it really, and as you get older and you realize your mortality and you think about different things and you grow as a person, because we're always growing, I think sometimes the light shifts. And once it's put the spotlight on fatherhood for me, it was like, oh, this is a really important part of my legacy. So Yeah. And I think you do the work with all of it. You know, my kids are proud of me. You know, they come to my shows, they jump on stage, you know, they get a little piece of everything, which is fun, you know, but they also get a dad that's going to tuck them in and be silly and tell a story, you know, when he can, when I'm home. So like you need to wear all those hats.
Yeah. I'm imagining story time with you must be a lot of fun, pretty animated, lots of energy.
Blast. It's a blast. Yeah. The problem is my daughter's as energetic as me. So she's 9 and she'll like get up and like, I can't even like, I'm trying to put her to bed and she's like all sorts of like hopping around being like, oh, tell me, you know, we made up these like stories about this character named Grumpo. And they're always like, tell me a story about Grumpo, you know, and then she'll always act it out because he's this angry troll. And she just like runs around. And she's like, is he like this? And I'm like, get in bed. It's 8 o'clock. You're supposed to be sleeping. Your mom's going to kill me. So, yeah, it's interesting to see. But yeah, we definitely are an animated story. And I see it being infectious with my kids. When they start telling stories now, too, they get a little bit more peacocky, a little bit more with their bodies. It's fun.
That's amazing. Joe, I want to I have a set of interns from Emerson College, and I'm blessed every semester to have these amazing, talented young people coming in and working, trying to help me make the podcast better. This year, for whatever reason, at least half of them are studying comedy.
Oh, really?
Comedic writing. Yeah.
That's
so
amazing.
I want to be selfish, and I want to ask you on their behalf, what advice can you give these aspiring comedy writers and stand-ups?
I would say don't be afraid to write something bad because you got to get it out. You got to get it out. You know, that's the biggest thing. You get in your own way a lot with all of it. With anything creatively, I find you get in your own way. Mm-hmm. Like you start judging it from the thing it's not holding up to a standard, but you get rid of the bad and then the good starts flowing. You know, that's a big part of it for me. I think you got to be afraid not to tell a bad joke, not to, you know, because even out of the bad jokes that even you're telling or the bad things, you like, all right, it gives you a point to start from to make it better. You're not just pulling out of the air. You know, you're able to be like, okay, this doesn't work. Why? Oh, what if I just switch the adjectives here? What if I switch the premise? What if I switch the timing? You know, so you'll have something to work on instead of work out. And that's a big difference for me.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their own process too, I would say. You're going to figure it out your way. There's no handbook. That's why not everybody's a comic. Not everybody can do comedic writing. You know, you're going to figure it out your own way. There's no real formula for it. But that for me, I've found, and I find that with a lot of fellow comics I respect and comedians I've worked with. I think that's part of the process is don't be afraid to write something. Yeah.
Yeah. And that advice about don't be afraid to write a bad joke or tell a bad joke. I mean, it's like riding a motorcycle. It's not a matter of if you're going to dump the bike, it's when you're going to. Same thing with, you know, with being up on stage. It's not a matter of if you're going to make a mistake or bomb. It's going to happen. So you revel in it.
Sure.
I was sharing with my daughter this morning, one of my favorite things to do is to tell a joke on stage and have absolutely no one laugh except for one person in the back. And they're dying.
They're dying. That's it. You've connected with one.
It's like,
okay, for me, that joke works. You got one person to laugh. You know, if you get that, I am such a fan of that. I remember I went to see Seinfeld in, Atlantic City. This is back in the day. It was a birthday gift for Sal. And it was before we even were anything. We were just, comics and, doing improv comedy and whatnot. So we weren't even on Jokers or anything. And we had just went to see him at the Hilton in Atlantic City. And my mom got us comp tickets because she was always down in Atlantic City. And there was one joke that he was trying out some new stuff. He even said it, I think, and he was just like putting out some new stuff. And he said something. And I remember like, it was like a kind of low laughter around, but for some reason it just connected with me. And I went, like really loud. And he looked at me and Sal got super embarrassed. I was like, dude, we're in a comedy show. I laughed. Like, what are you? But I remember being that person for Seinfeld. And I like to be like, I made Seinfeld's career. I gave him the confidence he needed. You're welcome, Jerry.
Hey, before you go, what's the one kind of highlight of Jokers or just the most memorable thing that you did on the show?
Well, I mean, there's so many. I mean, I've always, you know, over a decade of my life, over 300 episodes, it's always been great. I love the time on that show. I love working with my friends. It was so fun. I really did enjoy when we were able to keep a secret or there was a payoff in a way that we weren't sure it was going to pay off as big, you know? So for me, it's definitely when we got Sal fake arrested, I think. So we had filmed this. we had filmed this challenge where you had to play stupid games with strangers, and one of them was got your nose, and you had to outdo each other. So we're just doing it as grown adults, going up to adults, being like, got your nose, and bigger guy or person, you know. And there was this huge statue, and we were down by City Hall. So Sal climbed the statue and grabbed the statue's nose and was like, got your nose, and like it was really funny. And then we're in the production office. About 3 months later, we get a letter. Our showrunner comes in and says, hey, we got a letter. We're getting a summons, a citation. We have to appear because we trespassed on the thing. They saw it on television, blah, blah, blah. So the next day, Sal was out of the office, and I was there working with the production, and the showrunner came in. He goes, hey, we called it. We took care of it. He's like, we just sent them our permit and we're fine. And I said, no, we're not. Don't tell anybody we are. I said, this is what we're going to do. And over the next year and a half, we strung along this fake lawsuit where Sal had to appear in a dissertation, you know, kind of thing with a lawyer. So we actually rented downtown. You could rent the, you know, just where they produce and they shoot NYPD Blue and whatnot. So we rented a courthouse. We filled it with fake people. We had Sal come in. We hired a fake judge, and she just sat down in plain clothes and was like taking a statement. And we had all different types of hidden cameras around. And then 3 months after that, we kept like sending letters and doing things. And then we told him he had to pay a fine of $15,000 and then, or serve 30 days. And then after, like we were telling them that, we set up a second, fake, we were shooting that day, and we hired like FBI agents and everybody to storm, like Homeland Security, to storm the set and shut us down. Our permits have been revoked until Sal takes care of this, blah, blah, blah. And he just was like, what is going on? And then the judge that he sat with came behind him and was like, gotcha. And he was like, and it was just like a year and a half paid off, which was like, I love a long con. So that was like a really one I would say, because we worked really hard on that. I worked really hard, and I was like trying to keep in and having all the beats planned out over a long time. So that was a great one for me.
That's awesome. Well, we got to tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Where's Bearry and find out more about you.
Yeah, so JoeGattoOfficial.com is my website, has everything about me, has everything about the book, my dog charity, my stand-up tour that's going across America right now, starting in September. You can pre-order the book, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the big hitters. You can get it everywhere. There's also a link on my website or my Instagram at Joe_Gatto, has all my information.
Awesome. Start a family tradition. You can experience Joe's comedy from the time your kids are 5 until they're 28, like my kids.
Yeah. I guarantee, I mean, this book, I mean, if you're trying to have kids, buy it now, because then you'll have it. And then you know, this book it makes it happen. It's an amazing book.
All right. We look forward to checking out Where's Bearry, and we look forward to you coming back for your second children's book.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me.
We had a great time with Joe Gatto. Check out Where's Bearry. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Storyteller Chip, the storyteller from the United Kingdom, most famous for turning reluctant and resistant readers into recreational readers. Hey, Chip, great to have you back.
Thanks, Jedley. Now, Jedley, question for you. If a grown-up wants to help their kids move from picture books to those big old chapter books, what would you say they need?
Some kind of bridge would be good, like maybe short stories?
Totally agree. You don't teach a kid to walk across your living room floor and then expect them to walk all the way to the park, do you?
No, you drive them to the park a couple of times, and that way they can build up their strength when they get there.
Exactly. And that way they get to see just how amazing the park is, and so before long they want to walk all the way there.
But Chip, don't you think it's really hard to find good short stories for kids?
I did used to think that, but that's why I got together with my good friend Corky Paul. You know him, right? The award-winning illustrator of Winnie the Witch?
I know Winnie the Witch.
Right, well, Corky and I got together to start the Fables and Fairy Tales Book Club. Every month we send to your door a new collection of short stories guaranteed to appeal to all kids from ages 6 to 11.
Guaranteed?
Oh, okay, guaranteed is a strong word, but parents keep messaging us to let us know how everyone in their homes gathers around when these stories arrive. Kindergarten brothers beside their grade 6 sisters, beside their grade 26 parents, and they all enjoy them together. So maybe proven to appeal would be a better way of putting it?
You know, Chip, that sounds amazing. What kind of stories are they?
Oh, all kinds. Jedley, you'll get to discover who the real king of the jungle actually is.
Isn't that the lion?
Oh, no, actually, he's the king of the savannah.
Ah, of course. So who is the real king?
And you'll also get to meet the princess who gave birth to a dog, a cat, and a stick.
A stick? How did she give birth to
And the girl from Indonesia who survived being eaten by a giant.
Eaten by a giant? How in the
Oh,
world?
and the man from Japan who enjoyed a ride on a time-traveling turtle.
A time-traveling turtle, Chip, you gotta tell me.
And the horse who rode a boy home through the town.
Chip, stop. These stories sound incredible. How do I join the Fables and Fairy Tales book club?
Well, you just nip to epictales.co.uk/join and enter the code RWYK during checkout to get 30% off your first 3 months. Your family will then get a new book every month, handwritten letters from the authors and illustrators, and even invites to meet those authors and illustrators for exclusive online chats.
Authors and illustrators like you and Corky?
Absolutely.
So there you go, everyone. Head on over to epictales.co.uk/join to sign up for the Fables and Fairy Tales book club. And don't forget to use the code RWYK during checkout, and you'll get 30% off your first 3 months. Chip, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jedley.
Join us right now from, I could throw a Dunkin' Donut and hit her home probably. Our guest is here today to celebrate when the world feels a little scary. Please welcome to the show, Gia Susi. Gia, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm super excited.
I'm delighted to have you on, and I was very excited when I discovered that we were literally neighbors.
Yes, Milton, Reedville, Canton, they're all one and the same.
You know, they really are. And it's all in the shadow of the great big blue hill, which is actually little.
Little Big Blue, yeah.
Big blue, yeah. So tell us about when the world feels a little scary, please.
Yeah, it's a story, so it doesn't necessarily have a main character per se, but it highlights different challenging situations that could be scary for some kids. I would say some examples of them are a little bit more a sign of the times. There's some things about maybe what happens when you notice a parent or family member hearing something distressing on the news, different safety drills at school that maybe didn't happen, even a couple decades ago. Some issues with LGBTQ, acceptance, and then some more classic examples, being scared of the dark, going to the doctor, getting your shots. So it kind of gives a little suggestion or two about what you could do to be less afraid. But the main theme is definitely love. I know we live in a very divided world, but one thing I hope we can all agree on or think that we could is that we definitely need more love. And we need to remember that we are loved, which is a theme that keeps coming up in the book. And certainly need to remember how to show a little bit more love to each other. So that's kind of the driving force of the book.
It's interesting. You mentioned emergency drills. And I remember the first time I toured in North Carolina with my educational magic show, I was in a very rural community. And there's one of these old-fashioned schools where it's just one corridor, and all the classrooms are off that one corridor, and you come in through the front door and you're there at the corridor. And as I came into the school, I discovered all of the students, everybody in the school, in that main corridor, in the fetal position. And I'm like, what is going? They were having a tornado drill.
Oh, yeah.
And they turned to me and go, don't you do tornado drills? I go, no, actually, we do fire drills. That's about it.
Yeah.
But now, the fire drill, I never remember being afraid of a fire drill. But I imagine now kids who are drilling and practicing sheltering in place. And, if you hear this said over the public address system in your school, you have to get into a closet or whatever.
And I used to teach, so that, kind of some themes from this book. And we actually did have one situation where it was a lockdown shelter-in-place drill because there was some kind of activity outside, and thank God it didn't end up being anything. But I gotta say, even the practice ones, when you know it's going to be a practice, it's really jarring.
Mm-hmm.
And I taught kindergarten and I taught first grade, and, you know, they're like, what the heck is going on? You do need to explain to them, you know, a little bit what's going on and why we're doing it. And it's just so tough. And even the fact that we are going through those motions, it's just, even though it's a drill, it's still, I found it as an adult terrifying. So I can't imagine how kids feel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the conversations we've had a number of times here in the podcast is, why do kids, especially middle grade kids, why do they like spooky stories so much? And, you know, kind of the consensus is that it gives kids a chance to kind of practice in their own mind some of those scary scenarios that they might encounter. And I'm imagining that that's kind of what your book is all about, kind of talking to kids about, hey, these things could happen. We hope they don't. But if they do, you can handle them.
Definitely. I think that's a really great way of putting it. Just, again, kind of giving some things you can do to feel less scared. Like I think with that one, it was you can talk to your teacher, just letting them know that they're not alone, and really just bringing up that theme of that they're loved and that they can do their best to love others. And it's really kind of all we have when things are so scary, which isn't a good thing. And it also is not. You just don't have a ton of control over everything that's been happening. So it's really just kind of, that driving force that, you know, what is a constant, you know, hopefully you have people in your lives that care about you, and you do. Some people might not, but then there's a part in the book saying you can be that person for someone else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, you just reminded me of, as I shared with you earlier, I spent 35 years traveling the country doing my educational magic shows. And for the most part, they were received well. I bombed a few places, but I was really dressed down after one particular show. And the reason I was dressed down was really surprising. I told the kids in my audience, I was doing a Say No to Drugs show, and my kids were kids at that time. And I said, you know, I want my kids to make healthy choices because I love them, and I would be so hurt if something happened to them. And I know that your families, and I specifically said families, love you too. Your family here, the family you live with, and your family here at school. And that's what the school had a problem with, because they said not every kid experiences love. And I said, well, that's why I said families and mentioned the family at school. And he said, we don't love these kids. We're professionals.
Ooh, yeah.
And I thought that was a horrible thing to say. And it really upset me for a long time, until I figured out a way to put it in my show and use it, and it's just kind of
and turn it around. But that's
around, yeah.
That's unfortunate that you experienced that, but just unfortunate for those kids at that school, right? Like that, there's obviously something there with their culture. I think I've been lucky to work at schools that had the very opposite, and I don't know a lot of schools that, pretty much all of my background has been at schools that typically has a more underserved and underrepresented community. And I feel like, if anything, the push was to be that person or family, or to be someone that is a constant and caring and that support in a lot of these children's lives. So that's really a bummer to hear that, but it's out there. It's definitely out there. Not every school is different. But that's too bad for the kids at that school. Definitely.
Yeah, it is. I'm really happy that you mentioned in the book that you could be somebody that constant in somebody's life. And I think that that's a wonderful thing to kind of teach kids at a very young age. Just that empower them with the idea that you can change somebody's life by being kind.
I was just going to say, definitely buzzword empower. That's where I was thinking. I was going with, I'm glad you brought up that example of the school, because, you know, I'm writing this and I want it to be as relatable as it can to everyone. And I realize that not everyone has this big caring community, but, you know, if they're in school, there's got to be someone, even if it's a coach, a teacher, anyone, hopefully that they have that, but also wanted to turn that around because everyone has the ability to give that love. And then that page and that part of the book kind of came towards the end of the book, where my point was basically, there's a lot of scary stuff. You are loved, but you can also love. And that's what we all need right now. So kind of giving a parting words of like, get out there and just be kind and compassionate and show love. And then that will hopefully just kickstart positivity, because, things have been tough for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
For a while now.
What was there one specific thing that inspired this book, or were you, I want to write a kid's book, and you were just kind of going through different ideas, or did you wake up one night and say, I got to write a book about this? I never thought about writing a book before, but I have to put this out here.
So it had been on my radar. It had been a dream of mine to write and publish a children's book specifically for a long time. I didn't ever really have a clear idea initially what that was going to be. And I had, I got to be honest, I had a few other stories. I just have a Google Drive with a bunch of ideas, some finished stories, some not. They were a little lighter, I guess you could say, but I felt like I almost would be doing a disservice not to publish this one first. It felt very timely, and it felt very needed.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a teacher, you also get exposed to a lot of children's books. Some are awesome and inspiring. Some are maybe a little bit more forgettable, but I always was kind of critical and receptive and interested about the books that I read and chose to read to my students. And now I have an almost 4 and an almost 2-year-old. So I've left the classroom, but now I'm kind of in that parent mode where it was something that I felt was important for me to do as a parent.
Yeah. I'm curious. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we've heard all sorts of news about teacher shortages all over the country. And you shared with us that you've left the classroom. Was it something that was going on in the educational system that kind of drove that choice, or was it just, I want to spend time with my kids?
That's a good question. I would say it's a little bit of everything. The last couple of years in the classroom, I didn't love the way that, and don't get me wrong, there are amazing bosses and supervisors I've had throughout the years, but in a whole, I just don't think the respect was there for teachers. I think we were getting a lot of criticism from admin telling us we're not doing a great job, parents telling us we're not doing a great job, kids being really challenging. It just kind of felt society, kind of really felt like we were getting beaten down as a whole. Mm-hmm. And then I had my first child in 2020, June of 2020. And that changed a lot. And I moved away from the school area that I taught. So it kind of gave me a reason and a push out. But I will say, yeah, I did not love the way things were going. I have a lot of friends that are still in the classroom, and it's getting progressively more challenging for them, I know. So, also writing a book was a way for me to test the waters to see what else is out there, how I can still be involved with kids in education and learning and reading. But I don't believe that the classroom is for me anymore, for many reasons. We could probably have a whole other podcast about that, but it's tough. It is tough to be a teacher. It really is.
I wanted to share that my beautiful wife retired a couple years ago after teaching in Boston for 34 years. And she really loved it for a long time. But the last decade and a half, she was noticing the same things. And all of the teachers who've been on the show have mentioned similar reasons, that they're not getting the respect. And especially coming from parents, they're reporting that parents kind of come in, unlike me and my wife, where we formed a partnership with all of my kids' teachers. And, one of the things I used to joke about with my son is, look, if you come home and you tell me you get punished in school, or if I hear, you're going to have to deal with me here too, because I'm going to assume the teachers are doing the right thing. Having that attitude and that partnership mentality really made a difference to we would go out of our way to go and meet the teachers and talk to them and give them all the different ways that they could contact us if there was an issue, if they needed help. Let us know if you need help with the class, buying whatever, coming in and volunteering. Instead of what I'm hearing a lot of parents do, which is they have no contact with the teacher until there's an issue. And when they come in, the fists are up, the defenses are up, and it's a fight.
One very small teacher hack that went a long way when I was in the classroom, I tried to find something, anything, in those first few weeks of school that I could write a nice email home, send a letter home. It might be like, so-and-so was really into the story today and told me a funny joke, just something positive so that they didn't see me as the bad guy, because it does feel very much so a big culture of just teachers versus everyone. And it does feel a lot like teachers just can't get it right no matter what we do. So that partnership is definitely something that could use work. And when you have such a great partnership with families and students and other teachers and administration, you just see how amazing everyone does. Everyone just flourishes, and it is really unfortunate to see kind of the attitude towards teachers and just the lack of wanting to form a relationship. And it doesn't need to be, I understand people are working a lot. It doesn't have to be, putting that out there just to say, like, it doesn't need to be anything major, just something.
Right.
But I do believe that lacking definitely doesn't help the situation.
Absolutely. We're all about here at the podcast, encouraging parents and kids to read. My initial motivation for starting the podcast was to let parents know that they can experience a beautiful bond with their kids when they're reading together. And that's a bond, that foundation can last a lifetime. And that's what I really want parents to hear. But the same is true with the teachers and the coaches and the other people in your kid's life. We should all be working together to protect our kids and to help them flourish.
Absolutely. And like you said, reading a book at night, I'm just thinking, if you worked all day, I get it, we're all human, but even sitting with your kid 5 minutes right before they go to sleep and reading with them is going to mean the world to them. It's going to mean more to them than you'll even realize. You probably don't think it because it's 5 minutes, but it's just such a small amount of time. But if you can even find that to carve out, it's so impactful.
Yeah. And as I told a group of parents up in Lynn, Massachusetts a few months ago, when you come home and you're exhausted and people have been stressing you out all day long and you don't have any more energy to do anything else, but you pick up that book and for 5 minutes, you're going to feel better.
Yes.
You're going to chill. Blood pressure is going to go down. And suddenly holding this person that adores you and looks up to you, and you're spending this wonderful time together, all that bad stuff seems to float away.
Yes, that's so important. And it just kickstarts a love for reading for them. And there's nothing bad that will ever come of that. It's all good things. So that is something that's super important. And I hope that people realize the value that really does, even if it's only a few minutes. Doesn't need to be anything crazy.
You were sharing with us that you have, a Google document or Google Drive full of ideas for books. Is there anything that you're working on right now that you're really excited about that you can give us a little tease about?
To be honest, I'm going to have to revisit some older things that I wrote. I feel like a lot of my time and energy right now is going on marketing myself and my book, which has been interesting. Lots of emails, lots of phone calls, lots of just kind of really putting myself out there in a way that I never have before. So there's been a learning curve for that. So I would say there are some things on the back burner, but I'm more so focusing right now on getting this book more out and about in the forefront. And then we'll see how that goes.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the things, we have lots of aspiring authors listening. And one of the things that very few authors, especially indie and self-published authors, realize is that when you write a book, not so much when you write a book, but when you publish a book, you are becoming the CEO of a small business. And you don't realize all the different hats you're going to have to wear.
Yep. And no one's going to do that for you,
Right.
which is fine because, it's your baby really. So it's something that I'm proud of it. And I'm trying to get myself, I have a couple read alouds for the end of the month. I'm trying to get myself out there. It's tough though. And it's interesting that you said you're the CEO because no one's really there. It's almost getting like a little taste of entrepreneurship because nobody's telling you need to have 5 appearances this month. You need to have your book in 5 stores. But in my head, I have all these goals that I want to get my book into more independent stores. Obviously, Amazon is super convenient for everyone, but I love supporting local businesses and being involved in that. So it's interesting the goals you kind of end up making and the directions you make for yourself, but no one's telling you, but it's been an experience.
Yeah. Well, we should help you market by telling everybody where they can go to find out more about you and find out more about When the World Feels a Little Scary.
Yeah. So as I said, we are on Amazon, also silverstreetmedia.com, which is, they work with the small publishing company, Damianos Publishing, who got the book up and running. As far as stores, it is available at Moon Lily in Norwood, which is an adorable bookstore, toy store. They have a lot of great family events. They also have a little hair salon in the back for kiddos. It's a very cool spot. So regardless of if you go there to buy my book or not, it's worth, if you have young kiddos, checking it out. Also available at the Nutshell in Milton, and at the Canton and Milton Public Libraries if you want to just take a bit.
And all of those towns are in Massachusetts, not too far away from our studios here in beautiful Reedville. Do you have a website where folks can go to?
Yes, I do, and I just created that this week, so anyone that checks it out, in progress, bear with me. First website I've ever created. It is Gia Susi, childrensbookauthor.com.
We've had a great time speaking to one of my neighbors. She's the author of When the World Feels a Little Scary. Our guest has been Gia Susi. Gia, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much again for having me.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Please be sure to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram and TikTok, and at Gently Magic on Twitter. We have a great YouTube channel. You heard us talking a little bit about drawing with your kids earlier in the show. You can find Drawing with Your Kids along with our STEM is Family Fun videos at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. And we'd love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can check out our blog, download our free online magazine, visit our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read Wall of Fame, and you can use the contact button up at the top of the page. Send us a message. Let us know what you love about the show. Let us know how you enjoyed listening to Joe Gatto and Gia Susi. Let us know what we could be doing better here in the show, and let us know who you would like to hear on a future episode of Reading with Your Kids. And if you're an author, please be sure to click the Authors Click Here button up at the top of the page to find out about our very effective and incredibly affordable promotional programs. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, Joe Gatto. Please be sure to check out his debut children's book, Where's Bearry? And also Gia Susi. Please be sure to check out When the World Feels a Little Scary. I want to thank my magnificent team, Rory Grady, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Judy Hu, Stella Sheree, Hannah Bosange, Alyssa Montiero, Julia Lipman, Devin Hill. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you on the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.